All right, welcome everybody. Here's a quick run through of how to get Polish citizenship without the headache based off our workshops. So this is kind of the content we've been through on workshops before, posting a little bit here so you guys can see what the workshop looks like and also get an idea of what we do, how we can help you with your citizenship journey, and just some general education around the whole process when you're applying for Polish citizenship via descent. So typically right here, we'll kind of just quickly meet all the workshop participants. We try to do this with no more than 10 people. We think 10 is probably the upper limit. We can actually deliver this and do it with quality. 2 to 5 is the best. I think the small people the better. So one-on-one, we kind of do a similar process as well, but this is really the big workshop setting. So we'll kind of introduce everyone and then we'll kind of get through what we're basically going to cover. So basically we'll cover what the law is, how it works, your potential path for citizenship via descent, work out if you're actually eligible, so how to check by yourself, how we can help, how to find ancestors' documents and all your illegal documents. This is really the hardest part of the entire process. Getting documents certified, so apostilles, translations for everything. We sort of run through the process for doing that. The whole application process, how to follow up without being annoying and getting put in a bucket that no one's going to get back to you, and getting help. So obviously, not every case is the same. Some are nice and easy. Some are really complicated, just due to things that have happened in people's life and family history. Documents may be missing or historical events. So basically what to kind of do, where to go for help in the first instance. So that's pretty much what we cover. So we're going into the law now, right? So pretty much the law is just one rule, many paths, right? So Polish citizenship passes via descent or blood, just sanguinis. Once you confirm it, you don't need to apply. It's basically like a recognition of I am a Polish citizenship and here I am, I've presented myself sort of thing. No generational limit. So Polish citizenship actually goes quite a fair way back, but there are some things that disqualify a lot of people. So if for example, if you had someone who served in another army or something like that, this is obviously going to be a huge disqualification point. So some interesting stuff we'll get into in the rest of the workshop and in specific cases. There's no language test, so you don't actually need to know how to speak Polish. So that's always a big plus for these if you're, second, third, fourth generation. And dual citizenship is allowed, so you get to keep your current process. So you don't have to give anything up to get Polish citizenship. So that's always good news. There's two kind of key dates, 1920 and 1951. So all depending on your ancestor who you're applying via, if they're a Polish citizenship and did not lose it before the next person was born. So basically, if your grandfather was a Polish citizenship and your father, his son, was born before he renounced it, then you still qualify via the whole path, right? So that's how it works. So when you naturalized before 1951, that's usually when the chain is broken. So for most cases, that's going to be the case, right? So as long as someone didn't get citizenship or naturalized after someone was born, any other next ancestor in the chain, you're kind of good to go. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's begin. So clean path, descent, so pretty much unbroken chain, easy. So as we said, no language test. It's really a confirmation, not so much a grant. And it takes roughly around a year typically for most cases. The tricky path, so if somebody naturalized abroad or was a servant or served in a foreign army or office, so this is quite common in World War II. A lot of folks had ancestors who went to go serve on another country's armies and stuff. So descent doesn't really apply. You'll get a restoration process. So it's a bit more complex. It gets reviewed by someone, but I guess on the positive side, this is pretty much the same as every other person's sort of application or every other country's application for citizenship sort of process. So you just go through, you submit documents, you show things, you show motivation, etc., and then it all sort of gets approved. So, and this is a bit tricky one. So sometimes there were Polish regiments that served in other countries, let's say the UK during World War II, which you just sort of are not impacted by this rule. Whereas, if you're a Polish person, you served in the Russian army or the German army or whatever as a, Polish person, then it sort of gets tricky. So this one can be kind of tricky, but pretty much the restoration pretty much fixes most cases. So I think as long as you have your documents ready, you know your story, you know your ancestor story, it's going to be fine. So not to sweat about it, it can be done. All right. So quick eligibility check. So we typically run this through the app and we encourage everyone to do this via the app because this will tell you off the bat. That's the reason why we sort of created the app, but basically quick eligibility checks here. You have a parent, grandparent or great-grandparent who was a Polish citizenship. They held that citizenship on or after 31st of January 1920. They did not lose it before anyone was born, so before 1951. And you have an unbroken documentary chain linking each generation to you. So you have birth certificates, marriage certificates, death certificates, right, for every person in the line to get to you. So typically what we kind of do is we encourage people to just go through the app and double check what they need to do. There's pretty much a page that'll tell you where to go, and you pretty much fill out like a short questionnaire. It's like 15 questions, and it'll give you this is roughly what the paths we think you're eligible for. And you can click each one and go through the process for each. But this is roughly what we do in the workshop. We step through all of this stuff, nice and easy. Now we're on to the hardest part. The hardest part, which is literally finding the documents you are going to need to apply for citizenship. Like, sounds like it should be nice and straightforward, but this is often the hardest part because, finding all these records, so birth, marriage, old passports, IDs, military records, right? All these kind of things help your case. Really, birth, marriage, death, etc. certificates are enough. But, it always helps to get more documentation if you can, right? The way I look at this is the more the better, but you don't want to give them too much so that they're overwhelmed reviewing 55 documents that are not, relevant. So these, I would say legal documents, the better. So more legal documents, the better. Also write down your story so you know when and where what happened. For example, your grandfather served in the army between this year and this year, and blah, blah, he moved to Australia or something around this period of time. So pretty much the way this kind of works is it just assumes that you are a citizen, and this is really more of like a recognizing sort of process, right? So that's the way it all kind of works, nice and easy. But finding documents is hard. So this is, you got to find registries. You might be looking at church records from, villages where they've lived, or town records, depending on the period of time. So this is kind of, you need to know where they were kind of from, where they kind of lived, where they kind of died, etc. I would say, pro tip, go join this gazillions of Facebook groups. So if you're not sure, start posting what content you do know, and there's lots of helpful people who are going to, again, be able to tell you, hey, this is where this surname comes from, this sort of area, so try looking here, or yes, I know. So it's actually really, really the best thing you can do. It's like having a whole army of people to crowdsource, help you with your research. So that's pretty powerful, pretty excellent. I recommend everyone does it before they even start, because boom, it's going to give you heaps of content off the go if you're not sure. If you are sure, then don't worry about it. But if you're not sure, or you want to find some more information, this is absolutely the way to go. So where your documents live and where to find them. So these are the key places. So Polish records, so civil registry, parish books and state archives. I think most European countries have pretty good archives and records for these kind of things. So you'll see that. Citizenship proof, so if you've got their old passports or documents or books or war residence registers, naturalisation records, so if they became a citizen in Australia, they have their citizenship certificate. And your documents, so your birth certificates, your marriage certificates, any of your sort of legal docs that are there, these are kind of what you need to produce as well. I guess pre-1918 records, they might be in a different language, so these are often hard to source. It's not like finding someone who speaks Polish to go have a look through the records. It's several other languages, so this can be a bit tricky. We can kind of help. We have a service where we go and dig for documents. We've helped people find documents for ancestors around 200 years ago from parish records that have helped their case. So that is pretty good. Recommend if it's a really difficult case, give us a go. I'm always more than happy to help, but there's many other ways for you to do this yourself or by anyone else who can really help. So that's always the way to go. Apostilles. So basically, once you have your documents, so your birth certificates or your parents' marriage certificates or whatever, let's say they happen in a country outside of Poland, all of these things, their birth certificates, right? We kind of need to show, or a lot of countries have a convention where they kind of show this is a real document. An apostille is basically like a seal of authenticity. So you'll go to the government in, say, Australia or the US, and they'll pretty much give you to put this stamp onto your birth certificate, onto your marriage certificate, into your parents' documents or birth certificates that you need, right? That show, yep, this is a real document from this country. So it's recognized as, I can take this in the world and they'll recognize it's a real thing. It's basically just like a seal of authenticity on every document, right? So these are kind of the main locations. There is a cost per document. This is, mandatory. There's no way around this, but, and it all depends. It'll be $20 to $80 per document, US roughly. Some can be same day. Australia is mostly same day. Other countries might take up to 4 weeks, or if you do it via mail, it'll take a bit longer. But basically, then you get these document that says, yes, this is your real birth certificate. The government of Australia has stamped it to confirm it's real, so that way another foreign government can trust it, right, as a real original. So this is kind of easy, but there's most of the time it's just going to an office and getting this organized. So you book an appointment. It's pretty straightforward, but it has a cost. This is where the cost starts to bubble up if you're doing this by yourself. And then, if you've got, 8, 10 documents, that's quite a hefty cost, right? So, and it really depends. So in each country, we'll look it up. Usually in the workshop, we look for what country everyone's attending from and get them their relevant details before and after the session, so they know where to go and what to book with. So translating documents. So you'll typically need to translate all these documents, right, by natty or sworn translators. Some can be done in as little as 48 hours. We kind of recommend that people get the seal done before they do the translation, just because there's this is a lot of hops, so we want to try to reduce the hops you have to do to get all this work done. So they need to be translated Polish or a sworn translator. So basically, someone's just going to go through your birth certificate, translate it into Polish, and then that's kind of that way. So when you give that with your official documents, your stamped birth certificate or etc., Poland will also keep the translation, so they know this is the record, the translation, this is the birth certificate, it's a real birth certificate, etc. So here we go. And that's pretty much the hardest part, right? If you can find documents, you can get them stamped and translated. This is pretty much the biggest hump when it comes to a lot of this stuff. If you've got a straightforward case. If your case is not straightforward, it's going to mean more documents, and potentially you might not even be eligible because you may not have proof, or it's hard to find proof, and that's going to be a blocker. But this is really the big hump for a lot of people, like your average person who's got everything. There's always nuances and differences, right, where a person's gone under they've used their name was John or Jan, but they've put it as John somehow and never did an official name change, where you need to sort of backdate these things. But this is really the big hump for a lot of people, right? It's a lot of running around. Whoever you get to do this, whether it's us or it's anyone else, you're going to have to do this kind of running around. So this is the mandatory, hardest, most annoying life admin part. But once you've done it once, you're kind of done forever, and you're on your way to citizenship. So that's always good. So here's the 4 key steps that you need to do. So once you've got your document chain, as we've discussed, to get through, who you're going to apply through, if it's your grandfather, grandmother, great-grandfather, great-grandmother, just pick one person and get the document line through them. Get all their birth, marriage records, linking every generation, proof that they were a Polish citizenship. So if you've got some ID, like a birth certificate is usually fine, but passports, anything else like that is good. Check for loss events. So were they, in someone else's army or anything like that? Some of these key events. Again, if you run through the app is going to run you through everything you need to know. So you should be fine. Get all your apostilles done, your documents, then get translated, and then complete the confirmation application form. So you'll do that usually at the consulate. When you do this, if you don't speak Polish, it's fine. Someone will walk you through what you need to do, and etc., etc. So this is kind of step 1. So as we step through, this is step 1 is kind of really the hardest part. Once you've done all of this, you're 90% there, right? Nice and easy. Step 2, book your appointment and for your consultation and submit. So it might be your consulate near where you live, or an embassy. You can send it directly to the thing in Poland, but this requires visiting and things. So this is a bit faster, but it's obviously pricier, right? Like, so, time, quality, speed, all these things, they all have an impact, right? So this is a perfect case of that. So if you can find a representative in Poland, you can sort of get them to collect it and submit everything. It can be a bit faster, but I always advise people do it in your own embassy. Like, even if it takes like a year to get a whole nother citizenship is not a huge amount of time. There's people who've been, if you're going via permanent residency, you're going to be 8-10 years in some places. So I would do it that thing. If it's super urgent, then think about the Poland route. But again, with all these things, a lot of this process is going to be a lot slower to what you're used to for getting any documents and all these things. So you've got to have a level of patience and a bit of resolve just to get through this and to do it, and a bit of forward planning as well. So if you need it and your kid is going to play soccer tomorrow and he wants to get his, not really the best time to start. The best time to start is 3 years ago. So it's all done and sorted. So pretty much embassy, it's all about the form. So they're going to get the detailed data and kind of collect all your chain of evidence. Every name, date, and place must match in the chain. And the representative usually at the consulate or the consul is going to help you make sure it's all correct. You might have to go back and provide more documents for things and stuff like that, but it's part of the process. don't get too angry at the folks. They're just doing their job. It's, pretty much they're giving you something quite valuable, which is a citizenship to another country, which comes with a whole bunch of benefits and privileges and obligations. So there is going to be a bit of challenge in this always. So, but you'll go through it, take your time, be nice, be courteous to everyone. That's really the best way to do this, right? And also, I think bearing in mind, it's going to be a different level of customer service to what you're used to, right? Eastern Europe customer service is not going to be the same as Western customer service. So if they're going to challenge you a little bit, you're going to get checked, but while you're there, remain cool. You're going to be fine. Step 3 is all around the processing. So it takes about a year. So pretty much this is the fun part where you sort of, I don't know if you've seen that meme that goes around of the Narco series where he's just sitting on the swing waiting around, where pretty much it'll just go to, the whole state and you'll get a review and an administrative decision. If you are refused, you can appeal to the minister within 14 days of getting the decision. So there's no fast track, but 14 days is pretty good. So if this goes further, you can do a whole appeal thing. So there you go. So step 4 is to register and get your passport. So once you've registered, you've confirmed as a Polish citizenship, you'll get all your birth, marriage, etc. records transcribed in Poland into Polish. You'll get a PESEL number, which is then you can apply for your Polish passport and ID and celebrate. You've done the hard yards. You're now a Polish citizenship. You can get the passport. You can move, live, work freely anywhere within the EU. So massive win. Poland is probably the number 1 place to be, I think, now in the EU in a lot of ways. So if you're going direct to Poland, kudos, congratulations. But there's going to be a fair amount of waiting before you get that. So we kind of say, let's try to follow up and not be too pushy. So I think even in the app, we've got a feature that does this where you can just pick what day you've registered, and in 6 months, we'll send a polite inquiry on your behalf from you. After 12 months, we'll send a second one. If it stalls, you can sort of send another note saying, hey, what's happening? But tone, be professional, be polite. So yeah, as I said, you can do this within the app. It'll do it for you in Polish. It'll send from your email and you'll get all the correspondence. So highly recommend. This is a pro feature, but if you want to do it, and if you're a set and forget person, kind of like I am, we think is great for a lot of people. All right. So start to finish, you're looking at 6 to 24 months by the time you kind of start this. You want to do it, you go through all the process, you start collecting documents, you get them stamped, you get them translated, you get an appointment. Total cost, DIY, if you do it for us, roughly, there's a government fee, which is Polish zloty, it's about 58, which is pretty cheap, which is mostly just supports the whole process end to end. But total cost, you're looking at Aussie 700 to 2,500, which is pretty good for a whole nother citizenship. Going through partner visa at the moment, it's like $10,000 to make that happen. So there you go. So we can kind of help you with some document sourcing. We can help you with some translations. We have a white label translation service. So someone translates it for us, but it's our brand and everything, and they go through and do it. Chain analysis, the app will do for free. So highly recommend you download the app and give it a try. And doing the whole follow-ups, we kind of do that as well. So that's a slight plug, but if you want help, you want us to do it, more than happy. There's a few avenues for us to do, right? So as I said, use the app, check it. So just verify if you're eligible. What I recommend to everyone is sort of build a family tree and track your line. That's something we're going to do a lot more of in the second half of this year for folks, because this is going to be something that's going to, I think, is a really, really awesome way that we can sort of help this and help people stay on top of this, and for your kids, future generations, etc. You can get a personalized checklist on all the documents you need, and you see if you qualify and understand what you need to do. If you're super clear, then the app is going to be super easy for you. If there are some hiccups, then obviously this always requires like a smart person to come and help and do something like everything. So just be aware, if you've got a straightforward case, easy. If you've got a complicated cases, you're going to need a lot of help, a lot of legwork on your part and whoever else you hire to help you. So cool. So I guess DIY, you can do it for yourself, get help. We handle the hard parts. What our kind of main mission is to keep the costs as low as possible. So, I think we're pretty much one of the cheaper on the markets if you compare it to everyone else, but we'll kind of let us know if you're interested. We've got some sort of consulting and some other options available to help you. So we've got you can do full DIY, a bit of a hybrid approach, and then we can help you do most of the heavy lifting. So options there if you want to go for it. We'll send a link in the after the workshop as well, but that's pretty much the way to go. So cool. I guess your next step this week is we're going to send you a guide based on everything we know about you and everything we've chatted about today, where you need to go, etc. We'd highly recommend you log into Citizen PL and check what you need to do. Start gathering what you have. So get, mum, dad, whoever's there, get all their documents, start getting ready. Figure out what path you're going to do. Is it clean descent? Is it something else? The app will let you know the other options too. And then if you need help, contact us. We're happy to do another free 20 minutes with you guys after this session. So that should be your I guess next trip. So I guess have a think about, start getting these things, and then book it in, have a chat. We're always more than happy to give you guys a chat. So I guess positive finish. You've got this. It's pretty much all of this is at the end of the day is not just a paperwork thing. It's a getting a family. I guess a big chapter in your family story and your family history that you're going to leave for your kids, and obviously opportunities and stuff for them and partners, etc. So whether you do it yourself or you get us to help you, this is really a big step. So well done. You've made it to the end of the workshop. You've survived, and hopefully you've learned something along the way, and you've taken a pretty big step in the grand scheme of things. So it's crazy to think that a lot of our folks who immigrated from places were emigrating and never ever thought about coming back or had no desire, and now us 1, 2, 3 generations later are all looking to come back. So I guess it says a lot about the current state of things, but also I guess those blood ties are pretty powerful for a reason, even after a long time space separation from that place. So it can get too philosophical, but something we like to think about. So awesome. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day. We're going to send you some checklists in the next day or so and some breakdowns. So well done. Thank you for everything you've given us, your time, and looking to the session today, and hope you got a lot out of it. Book a call with us and hopefully we can help you. Thank you so much. All right. See you later. Bye-bye.